In this video tutorial, I'm going to use this example to explain the other type of a bed we have, to explain transitions, and also to go a little bit on relief when using a sheet metal in Creo Parametric. And I want to go back here. Basically, the end goal is to create this part by explaining all those remaining sections of the bed in Creo. If you want to know the other how other ones work, argo, bedline, uh, adds dimensions here, just check the my previous video or check the link under the description. If I go back here, I have this planner. Let me show you the sketch. It is a simple sketch just for illustration. Then I have this planner. Let's see, the planner have used a thickness of 1 there. Then one of the things I need here is I want to go to the bed. Instead of using angle, I want to use a roll, and I want to define a surface as usual. Okay, as you can see now, instead of using this one, I want to use a bed line. I don't want to sketch because I want to sketch a line from this point here to somewhere here, and I want to dimension that line to be 30. Okay, then remember we said for you to use roll, this value has to change. If I go to 10 up, okay, let's see now what is happening here. Once you select roll, and once you select a higher value of the bed radius, let me use 5, it starts to roll. But you can see now we are rolling only the section where we have defined our bed, and that is not the intention of today, of this making this part. You can see it is stopping exactly on using our sketch, and you might maybe change direction, preview, nothing happens. Downside, preview, same thing happens here. Therefore, if I go like this, you can see that one doesn't function. If I go to the second option, bed area position, we had the first one we selected was starts at bed line. The second is ends at the bed line. See what happens here. Let me use a bigger value for ease of visibility. Just let me check this direction here, and let me use a 20. Yeah, you can see what is happening. It is rolling everything, but this doesn't bed. Basically, it is similar to starts at the bed, because it is only bedding this section here, but it is now rolling everything. You can see we have similar thing. It's the same thing as this, but for the first one it's only bedding this section here, but the other one is taking everything and rolling to make this bed. You can see here we are getting exactly the same thing. This section is flat, only bedding here. That is not what we want. If I go to the other one now centered on the bed line, it ensures that it is now rolling here at the center line, but starting from this edge. You can see if I say preview, just see, remember the line that we sketched here, it is taking that line, then rolling everything, even this edge. Okay, and this we don't want that. How can you now fix that? It is where now we use transitions, because we want this section to bed, but because we have not defined transition, there's no way we can bed this section. This section remains flat. We need to connect this bed to a flat section, then hence transition here. Okay, add transition here, sketch. This means my bed, my roll bed stops at this line here, then transitions to the flat section using this line. You have to sketch two lines. Okay, the first line to define transition. Let's see what happens when you don't define both lines. You can see section is incomplete for reasons listed in the message area. Exit sketch. Okay, you can see in the bottom here. This section must have two entities. Currently, it has one. You must have two entities. Therefore, you need two lines. Why? We have said that my roll bed will roll until onto this line using the center line we defined here, then transitions to this line, then go to the flat. You can see. Let me just increase this a little bit. Preview. You see now what is happening? It is rolling up to this line. You see this the line we defined here. Then connects this line to this flat. Basically, it is lofting. It is taking this curved cross section here, then using a loft to this rectangular cross section here, from circular to rectangular, then continues to be flat. Okay, then this one here, we can go with a 15. Let's try 15. Oops, let's try smaller value. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, you can see we have used transition here to define how we want our bed to transition. Our roll bed, Argo bed doesn't need transition. We only need transition roll bed from this point here to this point. Okay, next is we need to bed this section here downwards. You go to bed, surface to bed or bed line. Now for you, you can either select bed surface or you can select bed line. In this case, I'm going to select a bed line. And the good thing about Creo is you can select an edge to be a bed line. See what happens when you select an edge. Nothing happens. There's no preview. No preview. It's because we are saying this is our fixed. Okay, if I change this arrow to fix this, now we get a preview. You can see. I want to go downside. We get a preview. But now let's see what happens when I change this. Nothing happens. When this is fixed, nothing happens. Reason being, for this now to bed, remember this one has this cross section here. We can't bed this one here, but we can bed this because this one is a flat and this one is not flat. Okay, therefore, for us to bed that, we need a small offset here. If you drag this like that, you see a small offset so that we can have our bed bed radius. If you now go preview, the front section is now able to bed because we need an allowance to allow this bed radius to be created, because this bed radius has to come from a flat surface, and you know that this surface is not flat. Okay, but for me, I want only the back section to bed like that. Okay, and I can still use some small allowance. For this one, we don't need allowance. I can use a very small, like one there, to bed. And in some instances, you might have you might be in a scenario let me whereby this section is smaller or wider, assuming this section is wider like this. Okay, let me illustrate that using let me just say okay first. Let's first suppress this and go back to this bed, to this section here, edit. Okay, let me just go to edit, go normal to me. Basically, I need to go to the bed line, transitions, sketch, let's assume this is my transition here. Let's assume this, let me take this one as my reference. I want this to be 0, like that, like that. Let's say okay. Okay, you can see now this cross section is wider than this. If I go back to bed 5, see what happens when you say bed here. It beds only this middle section here. That's now you can add an extra material. You can see you can now add extra material. If you go to details here, if you go to options, you can add now, you can elongate this second edge, maybe to 8 there. You can use a bigger value. Maybe use let me use a extremely high value, 20, to be sure. To be sure all the material is can bed. You can see, if you see preview, just see it's because that we have controlled, we have achieved this by ensuring that line, the second line is, we have adjusted the second line by ensuring that this line that is controlling the bed of this last flag has an allowance. Okay, that's fine. Let me go back to my fourth bed here. You can go to transition, sketch here, then let me go up. Let me define a 20 here, or 30. Okay, let me go back to 30. Okay, still you can see doesn't matter, it doesn't affect the, even if this edge is bigger, doesn't affect the bed because it is outside the material. It will only affect our bed if it is inside material, like that. You can see if I vary this edge here, we are having only a small section, we are just bedding a small section. Just keep that in mind. Therefore here we don't need it for the details. Options, we just use 0, and for the edit we just use a 0 there. See okay, and bed rate of 90. See okay. Yeah, then lastly we know to bed this front or back. Okay, and yeah, we need to bed the front. You go back to bed, you select this surface. Now remember in my last video we said this draggers here, you can either attach to an edge or a vertex, like that. When you attach to a vertex, it becomes predefined. You don't need to define the values you are defining. And the beauty thing is, can get now the relief. You can see a relief here. You can have a rip. When you see there's no relief, it beds everything. This one is not good because now you are going to make a die that is designed to bed this. If you don't need this bed to appear, just go to the rectangular and use a very big value here. You can see if you use a big value, it cuts that excess material away. We don't need to design a die to bed this section here. Just cut it away. Okay, if you don't need a rectangular, maybe you want a obrod. For now we don't need, for now obrod can't work because of this one, unless now you use a value here. For obrod you need a value. If you see preview, you can see preview here. You can't use the obrod to cut it. If you want to cut it, use a rectangular. In case you want to stretch it, you can see an angle of 45. We are stretching this an angle of 45. Basically we are bedding it without using a relief. You can just try to figure, just play around these values and see what you get. But for me, let me use a rectangular in a very high value here to ensure it cuts all the way through, and see okay. You can see now my part is is formed. That's how you can use transition to create that part. Let's see. Let me go back a little bit to bed 4 and go back to this here. I want to see what happens in the bed line if, okay, let me see. I want to see what happens when this bed line is not at the middle. In case I delete this here and put some small allowance like 20. Oops, not that. Let me use center line here, then dimension this value like 5, or let me use 10. um let me use, okay, I want to use a center line from this point here like that, so that we can define our line here to be 5 here. You can see the position, basically the position of that line doesn't matter, because basically no matter the position will still form a circular shape. Therefore, as you can see, you might think that this line here has to be at the center. No, because we said centered on the bed line. It will ensure that this bed line is always on the circular cross section here. Okay, that's something I wanted just to highlight to you. And yeah, okay, now lastly can put some engineering here, some round here, these corners. Yeah, and you can see the flat pattern is not highlighted here, but you can, if you select flat pattern, let's fix here, let's see, okay, what happens. Yeah, that's my flat pattern. The reason why it is grayed is because you have suppressed this. If you go back and delete all this, just delete, okay, you can see now my flat pattern is active. Okay, yeah, can select flat pattern, select for fixed geometry, this face here. Okay, you can see now it creates my flat pattern like that. That's all I was to cover on the bed. We have covered algo, roll, transition, relief, allowance, not a must, because allowance can use a K factor. These are the bed allowance to allow. Remember, when you bed a material, the bed radius stretches, and you need to give some allowance for that. These are the values determined by the sheet metal manufacturer depending on his process. This is how you define the name. Thank you, and stay tuned for more advanced tutorials in Creo Parametric.